Hi everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live event on how can you lead with purpose, a purpose-driven leadership amidst organizational changes. I'm Red Lovina, by the way, from Human Dynamic Philippines, and I'm thrilled to be your virtual host for this insightful discussion. Human Dynamic is the leading provider of leadership and change solutions in the Asia Pacific, and we have diverse global teams across 9 regions that are dedicated to developing leaders, building teams, and transforming organizations to be at their best performance. Today, we will explore the power of purpose driven leadership and delve into how it can be effectively applied to navigate organizational change while driving towards your business goals. A purpose driven leadership goes beyond profit driven motives and personal agendas. It inspires individuals, your teams, and your organizations to align their efforts towards a greater purpose. So let's all together dive in and discover how purpose driven leadership can empower us to navigate change and achieve meaningful business outcomes. Joining me here today is a career and leadership coach with over 18 years of experience supporting leaders and professionals build their skills, discover their greatness, and pursue meaningful goals. She's a certified coach, a certified master of career services, a global career development facilitator, an IC Agile certified professional, a certified transformative coach, a certified coach, consultant, and facilitator of DISC behavioral assessment, Viatech Global, and Assessments 360. A founder and facilitator of Build Your Coaching Career Mentoring Program, and she champions in coaching, consulting, and workshops, career strategy, growth, transition, reinvention and revamping, leadership development, leaders as coaches, agile people development, and leadership. With her extensive experience in senior regional roles in business operations, trainings and development lead, service delivery lead, and technical roles, she brings a wealth of knowledge and insights to our discussion on purpose driven leadership amidst organizational changes. Her journey has been marked by remarkable achievements and a commitment to driving positive changes within the organizations she has worked with. The author of 30 something and retired, How to Get Out of the Life That Drains You, and she contributed for LinkedIn, News Asia, HR Katha, HR Future, Mom Center PH, and she's one of the two Filipinos recognized by LinkedIn as its top voice. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Curly de Guzman.
Hi, Red. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
Hi, Curly. How are you today?
Great. I'm feeling great. It's a warm day today where we are at, but
Yes.
the energy is high and I can feel it.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for being here, Curly, amidst your busy schedule. But I'm so grateful to be here with you this afternoon. But allow me to ask you, can you share to everyone with us some of your journey?
Yes, my journey as a coach and as a
Yes.
consultant. Prior to this, I have been actually in corporate. I have several years in a leadership position, management position, also handled learning and development, productivity, business operations, and even technical work before becoming full time as a coach and as a consultant.
Seems that you're having fun right now, Curly.
Very much, very much.
You're
I'm in a
enjoying.
good space.
I love it. But let's dive into this already. The first question that I'm going to ask you for this afternoon is, how would you define or describe your purpose driven leadership or a purpose driven leadership?
Right, thank you. just to set the stage, no, my responses might really sound very coach like, and as people, we all have our own definition. So I'm privileged to share my own, how I would describe purpose driven leadership or leading with purpose. So for me, it consists of four things. So the first one is having deep and expansive awareness of yourself and also of the business, and using that awareness to serve as your internal compass towards reaching your own goals or the business goals. Which leads me to the second point, which is leading from within. So when you have that internal compass, you lead from within and use that internal compass to guide you. And the third point, or the third part of purpose driven leadership for me, is also helping others discover and align with their own purpose. So it's not just about this is my purpose, this is what I want, but also enabling others so that they can discover and also live by their purpose. And the fourth point, you know, as a leader, also knowing at the back of your mind that you are an enabler of people. You're not there really primarily to give commands all the time, to tell them what to do, because people, human beings, they're actually capable. And as leaders, all we need to do is to enable them so that they can fulfill their purpose, they can be at their best.
Ah, very insightful. And I think it's going to be more helpful for me also. So, leading with your definition of purpose driven leadership, or your meaning, your definitions would be leading from within, the awareness, the internal compass, or the awareness that you have from within is would be your internal compass as you help others find or align their purposes as well.
Yes, yes, you got it right.
Now, can you share a time when you had to lead the team through a significant organizational change?
Yeah, right. So when I was working in corporate, I went through both big and small changes in my career. Small changes might be like transferring from one floor of the building to a different floor, or maybe bigger ones like transforming from one office site to another, which is in a different city. And of course, you know how, pre-pandemic, when work from home wasn't really something that was considered by
Yeah.
many organizations. The location of the office is very important. And then there are also changes like dealing with new managers or dealing with new leaders. It's become quite common that sometimes we think it's normal already, but it's also change that we deal with. And then big changes like reorganization, um and maybe this is what I'll speak more about later. Um, when our team had to sort of spin off from an existing team, build a new team supporting new technologies, providing new services, and building new skills. And then I was also one of the most significant that I remember was, I think that was back in 2007 or 2008, when there was a global recession and our organization had to go through pay cut. Of course, in the Philippines, it has to be voluntary, but I had to do that difficult conversation with my direct reports.
Ooh, that sounds difficult and challenging to hear.
Very.
Now, how did you prioritize your purpose in your leadership approach during these changes?
Mm. Red, to be honest, when I was a younger leader, when I started, my purposefulness as a leader, or my purpose was really centered on getting results. And I think that's also quite common for those who are transitioning from being an individual contributor, where all you really care about, more or less, would be your results, delivering what the business expects of you, and then transitioning to a leader. I was really focused on results back then. That's why, like I said earlier, the awareness is important. You should know also what your purpose is, what your core or inner compass is all about. So that time for me, it was really all about results. But through time, as I matured as a leader, it evolved to another R. And from results, I focus more on relationships. And I know some people might, like, some managers, they might raise a red flag and say, but I don't want to be friends with my employees, right? It's not really about being friends. Simply put, it's really about seeing them as human beings who go through the process of change, right? It's acknowledging that, yes, I had my business results to deliver then, but I
Mm.
also need to see them as people. And as people, they have their needs, they get confused with the change. We need to understand what's going on, and that they need to feel valued. They need to understand also, what's this change all about? How does this impact me? Right? So it's not just about, it's not just like you're walking a dog and you're just pulling the dog and dragging the dog to wherever you want to go. It's not like that. It really takes alignment on, why are we doing this? Why is this important? And that was how I led during those times, during the changes that I mentioned. Thankfully, my organization back then, we had very strong change and communication management. So we managers were briefed about any changes. We were given the necessary tools that we needed so that we can communicate the change effectively to our employees. And then, depending on the magnitude of the change, we also had town halls as needed, whether
Mm.
it's all employees or just for the team. So, uh, to be more concrete, as an example, when I said earlier, there was a time when our team had to spin off. So our team was growing, um, and we were forming sort of like a new service that we will be offering to our clients. So we had to spin off, um, and form a new team altogether. So what we did then, myself and the other manager who will be left behind with the team that was left behind, we did a joint announcement. We also did our one-on-one, so we hear them out, we give them a voice. That's very important. And getting in touch with them one-on-one, it has also helped us decide and consider who might want to move to this new team, right? To the new team that we're forming, who wants to rather stay behind because that's more aligned with their career and growth goals, right? So, and as I was forming my team, I had some members from the old team. We also had to hire some new members also externally. I really got them involved. Recognizing, getting to know them really, what their unique skills and strengths are, and then moving from there. And I'm happy to say, and I'm proud to say, that they all did very well. Some of them were tenured, some of them were like fresh from college, fresh from the university, but they all did very well enough at that at some point I already had a successor, and I felt that they were ready to carry on without me. So yeah, I was it also allowed me to transition into a different role and take care of my own development.
Mm. You kept me thinking, Curly, how or what my inner compass is as well. If I would be a leader someday, what would be my inner compass? Kept me reflecting and thinking as you were talking and sharing your experiences and your journey. Now, what are some key strategies for leading with purpose amidst organizational changes?
Yeah, and I'd like to start, Red, with what you were reflecting on, about your inner compass. You are on the first step, right? Reflect and be clear with what your purpose is. Your compass must always be well calibrated, because as human beings, we change, we evolve through the different seasons of our life. You might have a different set of values, things that matter to you. Your sense of purpose might be different, maybe when you just graduated from the university, and it might have changed when maybe you became a parent, right? So it must always be, you start with yourself, calibrate your compass. What kind of a leader am I? What are my core beliefs? And then ask yourself, how does this align with the organization, or is it even aligned at all? Actually, even when you look for a job, that's something that you have to check, no, if it's aligned. How do I
Mm.
personally feel about this change? And sometimes this is the step that some leaders miss, no, because they're already focused on getting the results of the change, we forget to start with ourselves and ask ourselves first, what about me? What's the change? What's the impact of this change on myself? Because the way that you perceive it, the way that you think it impacts you also affects the way that you deal with it and you communicate it, right? And it's also part of that is also acknowledging that people who receive the news or the communication might not share the same views as I have, right? um so then you ask yourself also, what's my inner compass telling me? And how do I want to deal with all these changes? Because um, one of the other reasons why that's important, the coming to terms, with the change and how it impacts yourself, is because there are many influences also around you. You have your manager. Your manager has a different style, right? Different perspectives. You don't have to copy that. That's why it's important to know what's my style, what's my compass, right? um you have deadlines to deliver. On top of the change, you also have your BAU, or your business as usual work, right? So be clear with that. And like they say, when your why is clear, the how will follow. It's easier for you to identify the steps, the what's and the hows after. And also, as part of this, no, after doing the inner work or the reflection, also understand and acknowledge that the way you perceive change may be different from that of your team. And that's also why you have to listen to them and you have to involve them in the process.
I guess no, Curly. It really will start from within, from you, and then the rest will follow. I like what you said. When your why is clear, your house will follow. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yes, yes, correct.
Thank you so much. Now, how do you ensure that your team remains aligned with the organization's purpose during these changes?
Yeah. For me, I couldn't say this enough. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Right? And I say this not just from my experience leading teams, but also now as a coach. I coach many who have lost their jobs. And I know that all these reorganization, people being laid off, it's a huge change that people deal with. And I can see from my clients how communication really makes a difference in them, in the way that they react, the way that they deal with the change, how they perceive their job loss, how they even think or talk about the companies where they came from. So, from different angles, communication is very important. And when we talk about communication, this is not just for the sake of communicating. It's not just about ticking a box in your to do list. Ah, okay, I sent an email, I sent an announcement, that's done. Communication should be two-way. Everyone must be on the same page and also steering from the boat. You have to make sure that the why is clear. Why are we doing this? And then also get them involved. You can get them involved by just simply hearing them out, or asking for their feedback, or just letting them know what is this really all about. And then check in, right? When we roll out a change, it's not just plug and play, right? It's not just like you install something. Like, even if you install something, let's say a new OS on your phone, no, it doesn't work perfectly the first time. So it's good to check in. How are you doing? Is this change working? How is it working for you? What's not working? And how do you think can we do better? It also helps us become more agile and also pivot or change the strategy if there's a need to. And then, of course, change management. My background is in IT, meaning I graduated from an IT course. And when we do software deployment, right, we have a thing called, is it a big bang approach, one time, big time, you do the change, or a phased approach? Those things must also be considered, and aligned with your why, when you do the change.
Communication is two-way.
Yes.
That's how I like it. I just got, I just get some. some of your responses, and then whatever stuck with me, and then I put it into writing so I would remember. Those are my takeaways. That's how I think of it. Yeah, but I really appreciate your sharing for this afternoon, Curly. For my last question, Curly, how do you think purpose-driven leadership can help create a strong and engaged workforce?
Hmm. Yeah, good question. I think engagement is really a big thing, especially with quiet quitting being on the rise these days. So, like I said, purpose driven leadership is leading from within and leading from your inner compass. If, as leaders, you're able to model that through what you do, and more importantly, through what you do, not just through what you say, it also sets the tone in encouraging your teams to do the same. And we know that when it comes to within, we feel that sense of alignment in purpose. We feel that sense of fulfillment also. We know how motivation can be external or extrinsic and intrinsic. When you're leading from within, it's more intrinsically motivated, right? You have that inner drive to do things. You feel more encouraged. You really want to do it, and people would want to do things because I believe in that same vision. I believe in that why. I believe this aligns with something that I value, and they do things because they want to, not just because they have to, right? And when you're a purpose driven leader, it's not just all about your purpose. Like I said earlier, it's also about you understanding the purpose of other people that you're working with. And so this might also mean saying like, you know, I want to know what matters to you, and I want to help you on that. I want to help you find alignment between what matters to the business and also what matters to you. Because at the end of the day, if a person's or if an employee's personal needs are not met, let's say I have a need um to be present as a mother to my child, right? But if that doesn't align with how the business works, how the organization runs, then how can you have an engaged employee, right? Because that employee's needs are not met. And I know that it's not easy, but it can be done, right? And through that, I believe, because it's coming from within, people will feel more energized, more excited to go to work, more engaged, and will perform better.
I think really when your answers are really true, and I can, well, somehow I can be I can relate. But I think purpose driven leadership, when you have the purpose in leading people, it radiates and people will just follow you. Like naturally. They would
Yes.
they would just follow you wholeheartedly. All right.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And I love the word you use. I love radiates because it shows, right? When it comes from within, it just
Yeah.
really shows the energy, the purpose, the passion. And yes, naturally, it's like you don't even have to exert so much effort because you know that people will want to do it because they understand it, because they're aligned with it.
Thank you, Curly, for sharing again. Those are very insightful. Now, moving forward, I would like to open the floor for the audience, for our virtual audience, for a live Q&A session. So please feel free to ask Curly questions related to purpose-driven leadership and leading amidst organizational changes. Any questions that you would like to ask? Hmm? Ah, Curly, me. I would like to ask a question.
Sure.
But just to ask you, I'm just wondering, how literally can you communicate purpose within your people or amongst your people?
Good question, Red. Thank you. And I think we also have a question also from the
There you go.
comments. I'll answer your question first. Just like, with any form of communication that we do, diba? When we prepare a presentation, for example, what is one thing that we take into consideration? It's knowing your audience. So if I'm delivering a presentation, I should know who am I talking to. So in the same way, if you're communicating change, and you should know your team, you should know your organization. So this also means that as a leader, you should get to know your employees, what do they value, what are their goals, what's important to them, and you anticipate what questions or concerns they may have. So you can build that not only in your communication, but maybe also in the change or in the solution itself that you're trying to put together. And if you're doing, let's say, a cascade or a top down, you start from the top. The managers, the key influencers, they might not necessarily be managers, but those who have influence within the organization. Educate them, help them understand, get them on the same page, provide them with the resources they need, whether it's talking points, how do I talk to my employees, if you're dealing with your line managers, if they need professional help, just like what I said earlier, if it's an reorganization and people will be losing their jobs, do they need a psychologist or a coach to support them through the change? Do they need trainings? Open the doors also for feedback, hear them out, and be open, because communication, like what you took away earlier, Ed, it's a two-way process, which means that you also do not have control of the outcome of how they will receive it. So be open also to responses that you might not be expecting. It's also important to be clear and transparent, because people won't trust you if you feel that you're hiding something, or if they feel that this person does not care about me, or this person, my boss, doesn't have my best interest in mind. But of course, all those things that I mentioned, that's more top down, right? Which is quite common these days. But to me, if you really want to make change easier to communicate, and accept and be accepted by the employees, is when your employees are already engaged in the process. What do I mean by this? If you're transparent, let's say, with how the business is doing, and employees are aware of that, like, let's say, oh, 50% of our clients pulled out, we're losing business, or oh, we have new clients coming in, we're building new services. If they already know the context, what's going on, because you've been transparent in communicating, not just at the point of change, but you know as a part of your regular operations, then when change happens, it wouldn't be a surprise to them. They already understand, okay, this is why we're doing this, because 2 months ago they communicated that this happened, etc. Or better yet, get them involved and ask them, what do you think? This is our situation now. Um, what ideas do you have so that we can implement a change that will work for us. And when they are involved, they also have um more sense of ownership in implementing it.
There you go. Thank you, Curly. We have another question that we flashed through your screens now. Thanks, Curly, for your wonderful insights. I wonder if you have any tips on building relationships with your people during organizational changes.
Okay. Thank you for that question. I don't see the name, but
Yeah.
building relationship should start even before the change happens. It would, like what I shared earlier, it would be easier to communicate, relatively easier. It's always challenging to get into difficult conversations, right, on change. um but if you really make it a point, make it part of your everyday, right, to build a relationship with people, not just during the change, because the change is already a challenging situation, eh. If before that you've already built the relationship, then it's easier. So how do you do that? Simply talk to them, right? Maybe in your meetings, spend 5-10 minutes before you start, just check in, how are you doing? If it's a team meeting, just check in, how are you doing, what's new about you? Or during your one-on-one sessions shouldn't just be limited to talking about goals, or maybe what this person did wrong, or how this person can improve, or what this person needs to do next. Also really genuinely get to know the people, because then you would be able to understand what matters to them. And when you know what matters to them, you'd be able to build that connection, right? And they will trust you. They will trust you enough to that when you tell them we're doing this change or whatever it is, they know that, I trust Curly as my leader. I know that she has my best interest in mind. Or I trust Curly as my leader, and I'm willing to speak up and say that I don't agree with this.
Ah, thank you, Curly. Another question. Oops, oops, oops. There you go. Can you see it?
Yes, I'm trying to read it. So, leaders have the capacity to transform vision, purpose to impact, however, challenges may come in the way. What are the challenges translating vision, purpose to action, impact you foresee to be common, and how do we face these challenges? Oh, that's very interesting. Um, I think what might get in the way, one, um, external factors, right? There would always be external factors like the economy, for example, or maybe suddenly um, there are problems with suppliers or with customers, etc. Those things will get in the way, right? Like, even if, oh, I really want to execute this, sometimes we are carried away by the urgent that we don't get to focus our time on the important but not necessarily urgent. If you're familiar with the quadrants of time management, right? So that's one thing. When there are urgent things that arise, it might get in the way of translating that to action or impact. And then the other thing is, if people are not on the same page, if the vision or purpose is not clear, um, then it's hard to execute that, right? It's hard to turn that into action. That's why when you set your vision or you set your purpose, you need to be able it has to be clear enough that you can see it, you can hear it, you can smell it, you can touch it, right? Like, what does it look like for you, so that you know that everybody is on the same page. And maybe there might be differences also in terms of how people want to translate that into action, and maybe that can be a challenge also. Like, let's say all of us, for example, we want to increase our revenue by 10% this year, but we would also have differences in our approach, right? So that way, it really, we go back again to conversation and communication, talk about it. This is how I see it's being done, this is how another person sees it's being done. What's the best way? How can we agree, to translate that into action and impact? And then, of course, what's important is to have the systems around it to support. And I'm not talking about IT systems, but just have that mechanism. Because sometimes we think that, okay, we've defined our mission and vision and our strategies for the year, and we're good, right? But that's not enough. You always have to have, okay, how do we know that we're still on track, right? Just like your compass. um when you're, let's say, you're driving or you're walking, or maybe even your map, right? You look at your map, or you check your map every now and then. Are we still on the right track? Do we need to change, etc.? And that's where the check-ins or the checkpoints will also come in. I hope I answered your question, John Edward. If you have clarifications, feel free to post.
Ah, thank you so much. Oh, do we still have time? Can we answer this, Curly?
Sure, sure.
Okay. Thank you. How can purpose-driven leadership address my feeling of disengagement and lack of fulfillment in my role?
Okay. Thank you for the question, Aki. Um, are the question on my mind is it purpose driven leadership for yourself? Are you the one who are trying to be purpose driven, or Is it like, if I have a purpose driven leader, how will this help me? I think if it's that way, like if I have a purpose driven leader, how will that help me? That's aligned with what I shared earlier. No? If your manager is like really engaging with you and getting to know you, your manager or your leader would know by now that you are feeling disengaged, because you have that connection, because your leader took time and effort to really get to know what's your purpose, Aki, what's important to you, what's your goal, what's your professional goal, what's your personal goal. But if it's starting with yourself, because I also believe in self leadership, again, it starts with awareness, right? For you, I don't want this to sound like a coaching session, right? But for you, where do you think is that feeling of disengagement and lack of fulfillment coming from? um Sometimes it could be like a seasonal thing, right? Maybe there was a trigger, like let's say i didn't get I didn't get an increase, for example, so now I'm feeling disengaged. But if you ask yourself, had you been given an increase, would you still feel disengaged? So maybe it's because of something else. So it's getting to know what the purpose, your own purpose is. It's also being aware of what your needs are, as a person, because all of us, we have our needs. We have universal needs, and it's usually when our needs are not met that we react, right? Or that we feel triggered, we feel stressed, we feel burnout. So if, let's say, what's important to you is flexibility, and because your work situation changed where you no longer feel that you have that flexibility, then that might lead you to feeling disengaged. If we're talking about purpose driven leadership in oneself, like more of self leadership. So start with a awareness, and get to know why am I feeling this, right? What triggered this, what caused this? If things were different, would I still feel the same way? So yeah, I hope I answered your question, Aki. If you have clarifications, you can comment or send me a message.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. We are so grateful for you, Curly, for sharing your insights, your experiences, and your journey with us today. And also to you, our virtual audience, for joining us today and for making time. The insights shared during the discussion on purpose-driven leadership amidst organizational changes have been truly enlightening. And remember, leading with purpose is not just about navigating changes; it's about inspiring and empowering individuals. And I hope you can watch out for our upcoming series on how to lead events here in LinkedIn. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to our How to Lead series for this first and pilot episode. I'm Red Lovina again, signing off, and have an amazing day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye
Curly. Thank you so
bye.
much.